Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Endless Urgency. I am your host, Mike Nellis. I am joined by Matthew Facciani. Did I get it right?
That's right.
Okay, excellent. The Italian
Yeah.
half side of me just had to do the little thing. Who is a researcher, a social scientist, currently working at the University of Georgetown. He is a Substack best-selling author, and I highly recommend you guys sign up for his newsletter. And he is also the author of Misguided, which is a book on misinformation. It's also just generally like a really smart individual to talk to about the social science of the moment in time that we're in, where so many people are acting categorically weird. I don't know how else to describe it. You would probably have an actual medical term for that. It would just be like, stop being fucking weird. And part of the reason I'm excited to have this conversation is that in my view, we're governed by some very strange and sick individuals. And I would like to get back to having regular human beings that could, I don't know, enjoy a hockey game yesterday morning without being weird and have them be FBI director, for example, not make it about them. So everybody, while we're starting off the show, if you do me a favor, hit that heart button for us so that more people get a chance to join and see this. It really does make a difference. Comment in the comments where you're watching this from. Tell me what questions you have for Matthew. I'll try to elevate a few of them as I can. And then generally, otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. So Matthew, I want to start here because misinformation is such a tremendous problem in our politics today. It is. I just got done doing a Newsmax hit and heard like 15 things that are just categorically false,
Yeah.
up to and including like, South Korea is planning to merge with China and like, I don't know, something about fluoride in our drinking water. I don't know. It was ridiculous. Like, how do we as I want to say rational individuals that are trying to keep one step in reality at such a weird time, like, how do we do that? Like, and how do you see us being able to coexist in a world where people are living different realities? I know that's a big question.
It is a big question. I mean, when I think about misinformation, the high level view is like there's so many different angles and approaches we can go about it. And I think I'll start it just at the micro level. I think that's kind of easiest to kind of conceptualize is our own psychology. And then we can build out it if you'd like. So when I think about our susceptibility to misinformation, I approach it from a perspective of psychological bias that's connected to the different social identities that we have. So it's one thing to just say, okay, people are motivated to protect their biases or fall under what's called confirmation bias. But a lot of my research looked at where does that confirmation bias come from? Where does it start? How is it formed? And under what conditions does it impact us the most? And one way we can think about this is just the different groups we belong to and how much overlap do those groups have with each other. So, for example, if we have a political identity and a religious identity and a friend identity, let's say that all of those identities completely overlap with each other. So our politics and our place of worship completely align in their values, and then all of our friends and family also go in that same spot. Well, in this one example, again, just a simple example, 100% of where we derive our social self-esteem from is dependent on this narrow lens of meanings and identities. So anytime we encounter information that challenges that narrow lens of identities, and the meanings associated with them, it feels like a 100% attack on our self-esteem and our self-worth, and we're super motivated to defend it. So trying to understand where we're deriving this self-esteem from and the different social groups we interact with, I think could be a good first step for understanding what biases we might potentially have.
So can I ask you this question? Because you're talking about when different parts of your life align and misalign, right? And what I hear in that is I hear friction. And because I'm somebody that like I chase after those moments when I'm really uncomfortable, when there's
Yeah.
something I don't understand. And would you then encourage people in order to build the skills that they need to not be so susceptible to misinformation, to put more friction in their life, to go spend time with somebody that fundamentally disagrees with you, to go be part of a culture that disagrees with you? And I'll just add a personal layer to that question before you answer it is, I feel like I'm this like weird like me as a human being, as a bag of meat, whatever you would call me. I feel like I'm this like overlayered, very weird kind of collection of different things that I have in my life, right? I'm a member of the Democratic Party. I'm Catholic. I grew up in a Republican household. I'm a gun owner. I have a 6-year-old boy that I'm trying to teach not to be a piece of shit. I like country music. I also like pro wrestling, but also I love rap. Like there's just like so many different things. And I feel like because I draw from so many different wells, I'm a lot more likely to go, that doesn't sound right to me. Or I'm a lot less likely to fly off the handle when I'm debating Jesse Waters on Fox News or something like that, because I'm more used to being hit like that because my dad exists, right? So is that where you would tell people to go, like put more friction in your life? Or is that what you're getting at?
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And I think it helps to even like visualize this. Like I'm actually one of the posts I'm going to be writing next on Substack is helping visualize these different identity circles. So it's gonna be this little interactive tool where you can put our identities on a map and then see which types of
Mm,
identities overlap with each other and how they can be amplified by social media and things like that. So you can I think the first step is visualizing it and just knowing where it comes from. And then, yes, you're right. The next step is actually adding that friction and adding that exposure to diverse groups of people and different activities. So, one of the biggest ways we can challenge misinformation and reducing our own bias can be as simple as like getting a new hobby and getting more involved in our community. So we're not spending so much time online and so much time with the same group of people who might be reinforcing certain beliefs.
amazing. So, and I think that, I always, my line for this is always, how do you know what you believe it if you never talk to somebody who disagrees with you, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's part of this problem where I think the left, to a certain degree, the right too. I want to be clear, like there's so many people on the right that have just become soft, and I think our social media ecosystem allows you to sort of hunker down in your own little safe space that you build for
right.
yourself and the algorithm, and then these social media companies are just happy to deliver it to you and just shovel
Yeah.
stuff like right into you. But I think getting, like go follow an influencer or two that you don't agree with. I think it's just useful not to get mad or like rage baited all the time, but like I follow Jordan Peterson on Instagram, and like Jordan
Mhm.
Peterson and I, if you locked us into a room, we might kill each other. But like, 20% of the time I probably am like nodding my head along with something that he says, or I get an inspiration that I can draw from and something like that. I'd like more people to do that. One of the other things that you write about is just the role, it's written here, like the role of ordinary people, right? And
Mhm.
I want to get into this because and I said this in the intro, it's like I feel like we have so many aggressively strange human beings, like RFK Jr. and his never nude jeans that he wore with Kid Rock this week in
Yeah,
that video. I don't know if you saw it. I'm just like, why
I
is
did.
everybody so fucking weird? And I can't do it anymore. And I want to give, even if they're Republicans, because you got to tell me, guys, there's got to be normal Republicans out there. I meet them in my everyday life. I know that you're out there. Like, how can we take this moment in time where we just have very strange people that are making very strange decisions that I don't understand, that I think the average American, based on the polling, seems like they don't understand either. How can we elevate like regular people and create I guess, a permission structure for more regular people to run for office?
Yeah, well, that's another big question. I
Yeah.
think what we
That's
see.
all I've got here for you, Matthew. It's big questions. Like,
Yeah.
you're here to solve problems. This is what
I
happens when you don't want to talk about news of the day, my friend.
I'll do my best. So I think what you're seeing here is a reflection of some broader incentive structures. So you mentioned like algorithms and things like that. And you can see a lot of these really wild posts that are geared towards the algorithm. And we see this very hyper online environment, even with that Kid Rock RFK thing. To me, I mean, that did great on social media, like you were talking about it now. So if we're just in this world where we're
Right.
constantly seeking engagement over anything else, then you're gonna see this really weird behavior. So it's almost a reflection of where we are as a society, but also the platforms that we have. I mean, I think it's important to consider how these platforms are designed and how a lot of outrage gets boosted in the algorithm. And I think that's really interesting is whenever you ask the average person like what they'd want to see on their social media feed, most of them say they don't want to see this most outrageous extreme content. And yet that's the content that gets elevated the most when we look at how these platforms work. So I think that's just like a broader question of both being mindful of our own biases and social media behavior, but then you also have to have a conversation about how these platforms are designed as well and how that impacts so many different things.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm gonna give you a thought, then I kind of want to get your reaction to it because I'm working on it. My subscribers know this is I'm working on a book right now, and it's in very early stages. But one of the things I'm trying to put together is this sort of reflection on personal responsibility in this like age of fraud that we live in, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I keep coming back to the word drift of like it feels like every part of American society is just drifting, and I think it does come down to incentive structures and the way that people are rewarded or disincentivized from doing certain actions, and really trying to figure out how we get beyond that because like in the first Trump administration, I nearly hurt myself like really, really bad. And I did hurt myself because I ballooned up to 600 pounds. I'm now working slowly to unwind all of that and get my life back for myself while dealing with the second Trump term, which is somehow more stressful in real time, but less stressful for me in my personal life because I went through the first half of it. And so like, is this country adrift simply because of incentive structures? Is it the fact that like it doesn't feel like anybody gets punished for a lot of the actions that they take, whether it's Epstein or the financial crisis? Is it, is it the social media algorithms? Is it all of it? Like, are we on to something here? I'm just trying to get your take because you have you think about it so differently than I as a researcher, as a social scientist, that like I'm just fascinated by your POV on that because I'm much more of a with my hands, like living life, kind of guy. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Is that a weird question?
No, that's a great question. So again, I think it's helpful to think about it in different levels. So you can approach it from the micro level, the individual level, as far as how we engage with our information, how we think about our biases. But then ultimately, I always think of this big sociological backdrop of how things like social inequities and income inequality can shape
Mm.
how we navigate our worlds. I mean, if so many people are stressed out and working several jobs at once, they might not have time to go learn about how to improve their media literacy, for example, or even reflect on their biases. And that's something I always think about. It's like, okay, we have this misinformation problem, this polarization problem. People are angry. They're not always the most informed. But beyond that, if people are stressed out, unhappy, worrying about how they're going to feed their family, that might not be a priority for them to be the most accurate in what they share online.
Yeah, well, and it seems to me like the Epstein class, as I call them, as a lot of other people call them, like they're trying to put the maximum amount of pressure on middle and working class families, so they don't have time to go research that. And I think another thing is I'm sure you've read like On Freedom by Timothy Schneider,
Mhm.
the difference between freedom from and freedom to, and the mental impact that that has on an individual. If you are so focused on freedom from certain things, freedom from communism, freedom from violence, freedom from whatever, taxation, if you're a libertarian or something like that, you focus less on freedom to do things. And I always think about this in the context of, what's the value of free speech if you don't have a proper education to be able to articulate and come up with the ideas that you want to sustain and live your life by. Then layered on top of that, people are working 50-hour weeks just to scrape by. Or my brother and my sister-in-law are both working full-time jobs, 50 hours, supporting their kid, barely able to afford a house. And that isn't real equality. I think we've sort of the idea of the 50s, 60s, 70s movement of like getting women into the workforce and being able to do the things that they should be able to do. And to be clear, I'm not saying we get in the way of any of that, but it's like fake equality for both people in the household to have to work just to be able to scrape by and afford a small house in a relatively affordable place to live. Like my family, most of them live in Nebraska. Like, and so it makes sense to me that people are, I don't give a shit. Like this
Yeah.
doesn't work for me. I just got to survive. I want to eke out a little bit of time and drink a beer and watch Monday Night Football. So I don't
Right.
blame people for kind of drifting away. Take it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just want to echo all of that because that's always in the background. Whenever people ask me, like, how do we solve this misinformation problem? There's a million different ways to go about it. But then again, ultimately, it's like if people are stressed out and they don't have opportunities to reflect on it on their own time, or if they don't have the strongest education going into it, I mean, there's all of these things that need to be improved on a structural macro level. In
Yeah.
addition to what I try to do on a micro level is teach these different skills. But I'm just one person as opposed to these larger macro things that
Well, wait,
are.
teach us the
Yeah.
skills though, Matthew. Teach us the skills. Help me at least. I can't speak for the other 600-700 people watching, but teach us give us a little bit of the tips if
Yeah.
you
So,
can.
so there are a few evidence-based tips that can help.
Okay.
So again, there's the understanding of our own social biases that I think is really important. And another way when we think about media and digital literacy is I really like this two concepts. One is called critical ignoring, which
Okay.
is kind of not always discussed as much as I'd like it to be, because we often talk about critical thinking, how we should think more deeply and analyze information. But ultimately, because we're in this information overload society, it's also helpful to reflect on what we should not pay attention to so we don't get exhausted and overwhelmed. So the concept of like, don't feed the trolls is part of that. Like if people are, sucking up your energy and attacking you online, that might not be the best use of your time to get in these internet fights. From an anonymous person that could be a bot.
Okay, but
Uh,
I'm a noted internet troll, right? And so like
yeah.
that'll try to take my livelihood away from me.
I mean, it depends on also who you're amplifying. If it's,
Sure.
if you're a large public figure and you're talking to someone else who's also has a large audience, I think it's fine to engage in those debates and thoughtfulness. But if someone is an anonymous account, again, they might not even be a real human. And you're basically just giving them a free boost in the algorithm and showing many more people their points of view. And also just a drain on your own mental health. So again, when you talk about
Yeah.
like ordinary people, I don't think it's the best use of our time to get in these fights with random people online. So that's part of that. And then also just being mindful of how much time we spend online too. So trying to reflect on, do we want to doom scroll or would we rather have some other type of hobby that might make us feel better, like spending more time with people we care about might probably will make us feel a lot better than just spending a whole bunch of time on our phone. And then finally, the last thing is this term called lateral reading,
Okay.
which instead of reading vertically, you open up an article and just try to fact check it within the confines of the web page. You try to look laterally and open up a new tab and see who is the person who wrote this article, who is the media outlet, who is funding that media outlet, what types of agendas might they have, and then you're looking at a much broader view of should I even pay attention to what this person is saying, or are they clearly trying to motivate some type of agenda that's not the most evidence based? So those are some skills that I think would be helpful if we all could practice. But again, it's challenging given all the constraints we already talked about.
No, I mean, but I think that's super helpful, right? Like a fully realized human being would be aware of what their social biases are. I think that's a normal thing that most people would try to do. And I talk about this with my dad all the time. Like they actually do teach you, like in law enforcement, to be aware of your biases. And I think it's
Hmm.
such a perfect example of you've got to be on top of what are the assumptions that you're going to make in real time that are going to hurt you.
Yeah,
Critical ignoring is such an interesting concept to me, and I want to maybe go a layer deeper with you on it
sure.
because I was thinking about this when I was trying to, and I don't get as much time to prep for these shows as I like to, but when I was trying to prep for this, is how Elon Musk took over X, and
Mhm.
X was this relatively, combative place to be, and then now it's a freaking cesspool of the worst kind of people on the planet and the Laura Loomers of the world and stuff, and Nazis are all over the place, and there's by the way, X has a tremendous pornography problem that just drives me crazy, and I'm sure it's because it's the algorithms like you're a man, so you want porn, and I'm like I don't want this here. Like, I don't want it here, this is so silly. Um, but it's kind of hard to ignore it because everything is like shoved in your face on that side.
Yeah.
But then the exact like flip side of that is you go to like Blue Sky. And
Hmm.
Blue Sky is like this, for at least how I experience it when I'm there. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't spend a ton of time on Blue Sky. I know I have a big account there, but I'm not using it to scroll. So I apologize to somebody if that's your first website. But it feels like a little too safe to me. It's too
Hmm.
sanitized. And especially like if I say anything that's maybe a little bit broy, like I like college football or something like that. Like I'll get yelled at by somebody. I'm like, I don't care about this. So I want to kind of find that middle ground. And Threads is kind of close. Substack is really close for me. Like when I scroll through that, I feel like I'm getting a bit of a middle ground. Like for example, I follow Ann Coulter on this website, guys,
Yeah.
if for no other reason than just to get mad about something once a day. But I want to find that balance. And I just want to get your reaction to that because I feel like X is just all over the place in your face, but Blue Sky's become too soft. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, each platform is going to have its own details and audience, especially for how each one kind of came to be. So, like Blue Sky was kind of in this response to Twitter and X and Elon taking over. So you kind of got this initial users that all kind of thought a certain way,
Right.
and it stayed a bit insular. So I like Threads the most of all the social medias.
I
That's
do
the one I'm
too.
most active on. And it's cool to see an alternative grow. And I think we're going to continue to see more alternatives grow and change with time. But just like how we have a diversity of groups that we should strive for, I think we should have a diversity of the social medias that we use too. So I really like Threads, but I've been trying to use Instagram and Blue Sky. I actually really like LinkedIn. Um,
I love LinkedIn.
yeah.
I'm low key. I'm a LinkedIn scroller.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I never thought I would, but after I was exploring, I used to be on Twitter the most, like old Twitter before it came into X, and then me, like a lot of scientists and people, just decided it wasn't worth our time anymore. But LinkedIn, strangely enough, has been a great way to just follow like other people in your field, and everyone just keeps it professional. And yeah, you have like the annoying like rise and grind bro posts that pop up every now and then, but for the most part, I just follow people that post scientific articles and then I get updates about them. So I think just trying to be mindful of the content we click on is also really important and trying to get as much control as we can in our own algorithm. There's been a little bit of change with that with the user customization and across different platforms. Like Threads has that Dear Algo feature that kind of works. I don't know if you played around with that, but
I haven't tried it because I
yeah.
was like, I don't really want to tell the algo what I want. I want the algo. Frankly, I want the algo to figure me out. This is why I like YouTube because YouTube's algorithm has me down to a pat. Like if I open it, it'll be exactly whatever I wanted, even if
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
I mean, it's
Um,
interesting. Yeah, because each one has its own algorithmic weights. So maybe
yeah.
YouTube worked better for you.
YouTube has me pegged. It's unbelievable. Like if I'm logging in and I want like funny baseball clips, I get funny baseball clips. If I want an old West Wing clip, I get that. If I want, whatever. I've been doing a lot of like watching Mr. Beast talk about how he manipulates the YouTube algorithm because I'm doing a lot of YouTubing right now, so it's giving me that.
Yeah,
I want to shout out a comment here from Tiffany real
sure.
quick. So Tiffany says saying things like quote having the education to express oneself and quote a fully realized human being are biases in themselves. I understand what you're saying, but you're referring to working class people, but you're speaking in a very highbrow way that will immediately cause working class people who maybe aren't, quote, fully realized and educated people to become offended. Your language is important. I agree with that. And I think
Mhm.
if I was in a different setting, I would probably try to speak in a different way. But I also like, I do think authenticity matters a great deal. And Matthew, I want to get your reaction to this. I'm gonna finish my thought, but it's
Sure.
I feel like you could drop me, like me, Mike Nellis, just as a person into generally any room and I could find a way to fit in and relate with somebody. And doesn't mean that I definitely say things like fully realized human being because that's something that's really important to me. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how to
Sure.
get to self-actualization, which tells you a lot about my economic state, right? And I've made this point in the last election in 2024. Like people were really mad on the left at people who voted for Trump in the middle or on the right. And I don't blame you for being mad, but there were a lot of people who were in economic distress and they knew the Democrats were in charge and they were pissed off. So they voted for the Republicans. When you're in economic distress, you're not going to go a level deeper on
Mhm.
abortion rights or democracy or any of these things that are much more conceptual to, obviously, I want to be clear. Abortion is a very daily thing to women who are pregnant, to be clear. But to the average voter that isn't going through those experiences at the time, they're going to go, I can't pay my bills. Everything's expensive. The job market shit. It's why Trump's in trouble right now. They
Right.
want you focused on a bunch of other stuff, but they're not even going to focus on the border right now because people can't pay their bills. So I think it's just getting to that point where you can relate to anybody and try to like know what you're about. And then the language kind of falls away from that. Whether I say something that's more highbrow or educated or perceived as educated, I'm not sure that that matters as much if you can find a way to relate to people in real time. What's your take on that, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we are who we are, and we have different perspectives, and we resonate with different groups of people. So I think that also highlights the importance of just having a diversity of people be able to share their perspectives. So, like in science, we talk a lot about the importance of having lots of different types of science communicators. Like for so long, it was just Bill Nye the Science Guy, which is great. I'm a fan of Bill Nye, but I think it's even better if we have lots of different types of Bill Nyes from different backgrounds who speak differently and can resonate with different audiences. Because while you can try to be as relatable as you can to everyone, ultimately you might not be the best messenger for a specific issue for a specific audience. And maybe someone else would be. So it's important to kind of amplify and highlight and boost those people as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm gonna shout out RP for bringing up a flywheel, which is one of my favorite concepts. I met Jim Collins once at an event here in Chicago not too long ago. Got to tell him, be like, I love your flywheel concept. I felt like such a friggin' dork talking about something business like that. We're running up on time a little bit, so you have a very optimistic overview, or maybe an undercurrent, however you'd want to describe it, of like how we can get from where we are today, where everything feels like a bit of a disaster, to where we can go. And I want to end this on a high note. So talk to me a little bit about why you're more optimistic about where the future can go here.
Yeah, I try to be optimistic. I mean, maybe it's a coping mechanism for my own, issues, but like I do try
Same.
to be optimistic as best I can. And I think what helps for me is going out and meeting people doing amazing work and actually being on the ground. Like just last week, I was with a great group of science communicators who are going out in the community and meeting lots of different people and trying to share science in all different types of forms to all different types of people. And seeing them do that was really inspiring and encouraging, and actually just makes me feel this renewed hope and faith that change is possible and we can be better. So again, like when we're doom scrolling on our phones, it can really feel disheartening. But what can really help me is being outside of my phone and in the community and trying to meet real people, solving real problems, and seeing that makes me feel a lot better. And I think if we all did that a little bit more, we could all be a little bit more optimistic as well. And yeah, just take time yourself to, volunteer and meet people in your community. It will help the community and also I think make you feel better as well.
Yeah, I think what Matthew was saying is that we should all go touch some grass,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
unfortunately would be bad for business for Matthew and I, but I think the right thing for
Touch a
people.
little bit of grass every now and
A
then.
little bit of grass, then come back and check in on how we're doing over here on the internet. Everybody, Matthew, this has been an incredible conversation. We'll definitely have you back to do like a broader conversation, I
Yeah.
think, and really
Happy
get
to.
into it. But everybody, this is Matthew Facciani. See, I didn't do the thing this time. He's a social scientist. He is an author of Misguided. He is a Substack bestseller. Go subscribe to him on Substack. RP wants to know if we're talking grass or gummies. My answer to that would be, why do I have to choose?
That's a good answer.
Gummy at an outdoor concert at Wrigley Field is all I need in the summer to be very happy. I could have a shitty seat. I don't need anything more than that. But everybody, please make sure you go subscribe to Matthew. He has an amazing Substack. Go take a look at his book if you can. And if you'd like to support the work we're doing at Endless Urgency, $8 a month, $80 a year to support our work. Helps pay for our staff, helps pay for our studio, stuff like that. Helps us bring in great individuals like Matthew for conversation. So Matthew, thank you. Thank you to everybody here and who's watching this now and who's watching it later. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.